Hello and welcome to the Author Ashram. I'm Kit Kaelstow, the author yogi. And in today's video, I want to talk about your self-concept and the way that we think about ourselves. It is extremely rare to find an author, even a big name author, that doesn't have at least moments of thinking, you know what? Someday they're going to figure out that I can't write and I'm going to have to go get a job. Or there isn't an author that I don't think experiences a moment in when they're writing their book going, I just don't think this is any good. And honestly, I think that if you don't have those moments, we should probably talk because those moments are very human and they're very realistic. Add to that the fact that for many of us, writing is not our full-time job, no matter how much we want it to be. And that brings with it its own worries, its own concerns, its own struggles and regarding time management, regarding thinking about, finishing books, whether people are going to like them, whether we have time to market them. There's a lot going on, which is why when probably about 3 months ago now, because I've been sitting on this idea for a while, trying to figure out just how I wanted to approach it without this video just turning into a rant and a screed. A newsletter crossed my inbox, as they do, and the author was talking about your author self-concept. And I'll be honest, the newsletter was behind a paywall, but what I could read for free. Basically, the author said, if you have a negative self-concept about yourself, then that is going to lead to negative outcomes. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that. And so that's what we're going to dive into on this edition of the Author Ashram. So telling people that if you have a negative self-concept, you're going to have negative outcomes. That's right along the lines of RuPaul's tagline, which is how in the hell you're going to love anybody else if you can't love yourself. And I know I'm paraphrasing there. It's along the lines of, toxic positivity, think and grow rich, when it was really pointed out that that guy was kind of a grifter and everything he wrote about in his book was pretty much a lie. It's right along those kinds of very dangerous and very insidious ways that we have of thinking about things that if you just think good things, then good things will happen. Well, that does a couple of things. First of all, that puts the blame for crappy stuff happening on the individual. And I'm not going to lie, there's times when we as people, as humans, make bad decisions and bad things happen. And we have to own up to that. Whoops, I didn't make the right choice there. Maybe I'll do better next time. But also, living in late stage capitalism, living in our time, what happens is that a lot of bad things happen because the system we live in is broken. The system we live in rewards different things than, our ethics may want to be rewarded. There's a lot of reasons here. And so I'm not going to call it victim blaming because we're not victims. We are existing in this system and we have to deal with that. But it's really without even getting into the ways that our brains differ from other individuals' brains and why I talk about your creative nervous system. Even if you're not neurodivergent, even if you have any sort of mental health struggle, which honestly does actually show up under the neurodivergent umbrella. But basically, if you are not a happy, bouncy, wealthy person that has absolutely no mental health problems in the world, and such a person probably doesn't even exist, then the truth is you're going to have a negative self-concept at some point. Now, hopefully, it is my sincere hope that this is not something you live with a lot, that this is something that you can look at and realize, hey, I am a good author. Hey, I like what I write. I'm a good person. I have worth. I have value. I deserve respect. But if we just kind of just stick right with the newsletter and what was promoted, where if you have a negative self-concept, bad things happen to you, I really want to call bullshit on that. I really want to say that that was clearly written by somebody who maybe is not aware of how they benefit from the system, of resources and support that they have that other people don't get, but also somebody that frankly has drank their own Kool-Aid. Because I am here to tell you that as somebody who has been very open and very vocal about mental health and being neurodivergent, that I have had an extremely rough summer. And that rough summer, a lot of it has to do with some physical health issues that I finally got some answers on and I'm moving forward with working to live better with. But I am here to tell you that as somebody who has had an extremely negative self concept of myself for a variety of reasons, including rejection sensitive dysphoria, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and being extremely late diagnosed neurodivergent, that as somebody who lived for nearly 50 years thinking that anything bad happened was my fault, basically what that newsletter was saying, which, again, I cannot stress enough, it's not healthy, is utter crap, and is certainly not something that we should be telling our fellow human beings, at least not if we care about them and if we care about helping people. I can tell you that in especially about the last 2 to 3 weeks, but really looking back, I have had some amazing opportunities come my way and done some amazing things. But really, for as rough a summer as I have, were that supposition to be true, the amazing opportunities that I have coming to myself, especially the first weekend in October, everything seems to be coming together. Um, I'm a participant in the Book Bazaar crowdfunding. I'll drop a link in the notes here for this video if you'd like to follow my fun little scuba diving cat. I'm a participant in this really great crowdfunding event. I have a couple of different speaking opportunities coming up in the fall. I have just some really amazing things. And personally too, there's some really great stuff happening. It'll probably be on my blog once it all happens. But things that are really going to drastically improve our living conditions and drastically just kind of improve my mental health. There's really great things coming. And all of these things happened when I was not feeling that good about myself because my health wasn't well. I was feeling like I deserved that there was just something wrong with me because things weren't clicking. My self-concept was not good. So I am here to tell you that if that is something that you believe, that your negative self-concept leads to negative things, stop that. Please don't believe that about yourself. Please be kind to yourself. Experience ahisma or nonviolence, which is one of the yamas, one of the principles on the 8 limbs of yoga. Author Yogi. There, I said it's right up there. Author yogi. I do a lot of yoga coaching. I draw a lot of inspiration from yoga philosophy because I feel that it has a lot of value for us and that it is something that really can help direct our lives in a much more beautiful way than some other philosophies. So have the kindness to think about yourself and know that you deserve good things that happen, regardless of how you think about yourself, regardless of whether where your mental health is, regardless of where your physical health is, your financial situation, all of those things that our society blames on the individual when really it is much more directly tied to systemic issues. All of those things, I strongly encourage you to, understand that it's not your fault, that you're doing the best you can with what you have, and that if other people are telling you that it's your fault, then those other individuals maybe aren't aware of the support and the resources that they have that you don't. Now, I did want to touch on one thing. Reading a little bit further in the part that I could read, this individual said that one of the reasons why negative self-image leads to negative outcomes is because you might self-reject or self-censor yourself. You might feel like I don't deserve to be a panelist, or you might feel like I don't deserve to submit, my story's not good enough to go to that magazine. And I feel like that's a cop out because yes, there, there are some times when you can look at something and think, that might be just a little bit out of my league. But there's also a phrase called do it scared. Or the simple question is, why not me? And a lot of times you can have a very difficult self-concept, but still submit yourself for panels, submit yourself for speaking opportunities, submit yourself to events and have it happen. I'm living proof. You can still do that. So I kind of want to encourage you, along with the being kind to yourself and being kind to not think badly about yourself, although I know that is so much easier said than done at times. I would want to encourage you to not self-reject yourself. Like if you're thinking about submitting short stories out, submit to that dream market. And I think any editor worth their salt is going to tell you the same thing. Submit to your short story, submit your work, submit it out. Part of being an author and submitting your work is dealing with a lot of rejection. But it's important to remember that that rejection isn't you personally. That editor most likely doesn't know you at all. And the rejection doesn't even have to be specifically about the story. It could be, I just bought a story with that theme. The story just didn't grab me. The story could be a perfectly wonderful short story that everybody loves, or novel or novella or whatever you're submitting. And it just didn't grab the person reading it. And I feel like, to kind of help insulate yourself against that, if you think about the book discussion online, every day there are countless people posting about how they loved a book. And I guarantee you there's at least one person that read that book and went, nah, not for me. That just didn't work for me. Even the books that are getting the TV and movie deals, even the books and the authors, I always give the example. When I first started writing A Song of Fire and Ice, the first Game of Thrones book had just come out. And the agent I was talking to was like, you have to read this. This is what's hot in fantasy right now. Now, I read in short increments. Like, I was reading on my lunch break or I was reading on my 15-minute breaks. I also now realize that due to several factors, I have trouble sometimes retaining what I read. Thankfully, I was able to work that out by the time I got to grad school. But I just, a combination of a lot of the characters were characters I didn't care about. There were a lot of characters. And again, we weren't getting back to the ones that I cared about fast enough. It took me 2 years to get through that book. I mean, it was a good story. We, watched a couple episodes, I think, of the TV show. We don't subscribe to HBO, which is why we didn't watch the rest of them. But also, I am not the market for epic fantasy work. Books that you can use as a doorstop, I am not the market for. My spouse is. My spouse had very much enjoyed the series. He loved the series. He loves books like that. I prefer little smaller volumes, a little more straightforward volumes. I also prefer a little cozier volumes. But, the stories that really hit my tropes or the stories that really hit what I like, my husband's read some of them and some of them he's really enjoyed. Some of them he's been like, yeah, that was fun, but whatever. So the truth is, even the rejections we get in this business have absolutely nothing to do with us, and oftentimes nothing to do with the story and everything to do with that reader's individual taste. Is the reader wrong? You could say that. I mean, if you wanted to, but the truth is, we like what we like. Some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla. Some people like twist ice cream. Some people like spicy food, some people don't. Some people, yeah, I could go on and on. We like what we like. None of that should reflect on our self-concept of ourselves. But I guess where I want to leave this is that if you are hearing my voice right now and you're, just in a difficult spot, in a very, I'm not sure what word I want to use. It's not a bad spot. It's simply where you are. But if you're not feeling the best about yourself, about your writing, about some things that are happening, I want to just really push back on the narrative that that's not going to lead to good things for you because you deserve good things. You deserve respect. You deserve care. You deserve support. You deserve resources. You deserve all the things. We all do. You have just as much value, just as much worth as anybody else. In fact, your stories and what you're writing have just as much worth and just as much value as anybody else, in part because you're the only one who can write those stories. And even if you're writing in the hottest, most popular genre, you're the only one who can write like you. So I want to encourage you to, anytime you hear somebody start to tell you that a negative self-concept leads to negative things, I want you to start questioning why. Why are they telling you this? What is their motive for telling you this? And is this really true? Because I guarantee you, there are a lot of people out there who are struggling, who actually do experience kindness and good things in their lives. And if it hasn't happened yet, it will happen for you. Thank you so much. Thank you for visiting the Author Ashram. If you want to learn more about your creative nervous system, I encourage you to visit authoryogi.com. I've got a short quiz there to find out what type of creative nervous system you have. And stay tuned. I've got some exciting things coming down the line. Thank you.